Hello, my name is Laura Schlarman, and the story I'm going to share with you today is a traditional fairy tale titled The Elves and the Shoemaker. This story originated from the Brothers Grimm. If you love getting a new pair of shoes as much as I do, you're sure to enjoy this tale. There once was a shoemaker who, through a spell of bad luck, became very poor. One day he realized he had only enough leather left to make one last pair of shoes. "What a fine piece of leather it is," said his wife, "as soft as butter, yet as strong as your hands." "Dear wife, tonight I will cut the leather, and first thing in the morning I will sew the shoes." The next morning, as the couple entered the workshop, they were flabbergasted by what they saw. There, standing on the table, was a new pair of shoes, perfectly made, not a stitch out of place. But who? How?" said the shoemaker. His wife could only stare. Just then, a gentleman entered the shop. "What magnificent shoes! Oh, please, I must try them on," said the gentleman. The shoes fit him perfectly. It was as if they were made special for his feet. He was so pleased that he paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to purchase leather for 2 more pair of shoes. Again that evening he cut the leather for the shoes and went to bed. And once again the next morning, there were the shoes, finished. Buyers were not lacking either, and just as before, they paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to purchase leather for 4 pairs of shoes, and the next morning, just as before, the shoes were already made. On and on it went. Whatever the shoemaker cut out in the evening was finished by morning. Soon the news of the splendid shoes spread throughout the town, and the shoemaker and his wife were no longer poor. One evening, not long before Christmas, as the shoemaker was cutting out leather, his wife spoke. "Dear husband, who has made us so rich? What if we were to stay up tonight and find out who has been helping us?" The shoemaker agreed, and so they lit a small lamp in the hall and hid behind their coats to wait. Shortly after the stroke of midnight, a window opened, and they heard the scuttle of small feet. Peeking out from behind their coats, they saw 2 tiny children sneak into the workshop. They wore only raggedy sacks for warmth. "Elves," whispered the shoemaker's wife. The tiny elves tiptoed across the room, scurried up on top of the work table, and began working. The shoemaker and his wife were astonished by the lightning speed of their tiny little fingers. The elves did not stop until they were finished, and they stood the shoes lined up across the table. They jumped off the work table, tiptoed across the floor, back up the stairs, and hurried out the window. The next morning, the wife said, "The little elves made us rich. We must give them something in return. They run around with so little on that they must be freezing. I am going to sew a dress, a coat, and pants, and I will knit each a pair of stockings." The shoemaker said, "And I will be glad to make each a fine pair of shoes." That evening, the shoemaker and his wife left the presents on the table, hid behind the coats, and waited. Again, shortly after midnight, they heard the creak of the window and saw the little children scurry up on top of the work table. The children were expecting to find their nightly work, but were astonished to see the beautiful presents for them. They hugged them and then quickly put their new clothes on. When they were dressed, they leaped and danced around the room, singing, "Now we're elves so fine to see, no longer cobblers we will be." They jumped over chairs, raced around the room, and ran out the door. The click and clack of their new shoes echoed through the streets. From that time on, the little elves were not seen again. The shoemaker and his wife lived a long and happy life. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed telling it.